Hey guys, this is Hetu and welcome back to etlqalabs. So guys, I hope that you all are doing good and you are making best use of your time and learning a lot of things, right? So guys, today I thought that I'll cover one of the important topic from the interview point of view, and I think this is the single question that can determine whether you have the exposure or you have the working experience in ETL testing or not, right? So if you can answer this question, uh, which means that this question itself will determine whether you will go the next. I mean, the interviewer will ask the next question or not, right? So in certain cases, what happens when we don't have we have many candidates in the waiting list. In that case, basically, interviewers choose to ask such type of tricky questions, right? And determine whether you have the real-time experience or not. If not, then he will close to, he will choose to close the, call, right, or the interview process itself, right? So that's the reason I thought I will cover it so that you have the better understanding. I'm sure that many of you are already working into ETL testing and they can answer, but many of those who have the experience in working in ETL, but probably they might not have the exposure, like how to answer this question, right? So the question is very simple, guys. The question is explain end-to-end uh, flow of your ETL project, right? This is the question. Now, how do you answer this question will determine uh, whether your understanding level, in fact, right? So, there can be different flow, guys. Yeah, there can be different flow. So what? Let me do one thing. Let me try to explain you what all the different kind of flow a ETL project can have, right? And then I will tell you why all these flows, how the interviewer can basically ask you to judge whether you have the right skill sets or you have the right exposure to working on the ETL project or not, right? So first kind of project in ETL, so I will say ETL project types, right? Let's try to understand first, right? So the first one is very simple one, right? So the first ETL process is basically ETL data, or I would say uh, ETL file extracts, right? File extracts. This is one of the simple ETL flow. I will explain you what is this, right? Second type of project, I will actually take three major category. I think entire thing can be covered into three different category of ETL projects type, right? So the second one is basically the batch processing. Okay. Let me note down all of them, then I'll explain you one by one. I'll make sure that you understand, guys. Okay, don't worry. Now the third is basically the data migration. Okay. I think if you understand this three flow, then you are good, right? You can explain which kind of project you are working, right? And based on that, I think you can also explain the type of questions. So based on the flow that you work, so this is one flow, right? This is second flow, and this is the third flow, right? Or alternatively anything, right? But you need to know essentially this three flows of the ETL project, right? So any of the project where you are working, it may or mostly it will be a single kind of flow, right? Most of the time. Sometime it can be combined. For example, the batch processing can be combined with data migration. It depends, right? But it's important if we understand each of them individually. I think we are covered and we should be able to answer, right? So let's take the first one. What is the ETL file extract, right? So ETL file extract is basically it's an ETL process wherein what we do basically here is uh, we uh, we do the same ETL process here as well, right? So we actually extract the data from the source, convert it, and then send it to the file, right? So instead of loading this into a data warehouse, we try to actually, so I'll tell you here, its source is basically, it can be database, or it can be file based systems, right? And then you have here ETL process, and then this is the target. So the target here is, guys, it's always files, right? It is files because actually we are extracting it and sending a file to some other system, right? So this here also we can use the ETL process. And the very example of this kind of project, ETL project, is basically uh, where there is a file that is getting delivered to some locations to some of the subscribers. So for example, let's say let's say there is a bank, okay? Let's say there is a bank called um, ABCD Bank, all right? This is a bank, all right? Uh, okay, guys, let me take the real time example, I think. Okay. Okay, I'm just giving you some real-time example. Okay, what kind of things can be there? It may or may not necessarily, have the same thing, but I think the components will still be there. So it is, let's say I have a bank called, uh, let's say, HDCB, some bank, all right? As this unit, which is basically investment bank. All right. So what the investment bank do? Bank is different than your normal retail bank. Here we have the trading, we have the equity trading, we have the mutual fund, bonds, etc. Right. So all those securities are being dealt here. Right. So all the securities are being dealt in this kind of bank. So let's say what happens is, basically, these banks, let's say they are actually actively into trading, and now what happens is every day they need to make sure that they are actually onboarding the right security. Okay, right security. When I say today, I will just take, let's say, one example, right? So there is a company, right? Company one, which is actually, let's say, it's a privately held company. Now, what this company tried to do is company tried to go public, which means this company will actually issue some shares or some IPO. It will come as part of IPO, and once IPO is fully subscribed, then there will be a day when this IPO, this company will be listed into stock market, right? And that day, the effective trading will happen, right? So you guys might have heard, right? So on many times there are the new company which are getting listed into stock exchange for respective stock exchanges, right? So what happens is we also need to make sure these companies will have these companies are available on your as part of your security investment bank. You make sure that this company is listed, or this company is actually having all the identifiers, all the static data, everything in your system, in your bank, so that your customer can actually trade this company which is actually getting listed, right? So this is new until yesterday, and today this company is listed. All right. As today is listed, what will happen is the customer would like to trade, and they need to find all these details. So some details, let's say Rick, okay, Bloomberg ID, or maybe company ticker. These are some technical name, guys. Don't worry about it. Okay, ticker, schedule, ISIN, right? So these are certain identifier, basically, guys. Okay, identifier. When I say, let's say the company, company one, right? So how do you identify this is company one, right? So this should have some RIC, writer identification code, right? Which is basically on the exchange level. Then you have the ticker, which is also, I think, on the exchange level. Then CIDOL, it's basically on the country level, and ISIN. Oh, okay. CIDOL is, I think, not country level. ISIN is a country level identifier. Okay. So this kind of, identifiers will be there, and this bank would like to have all this information readily available so that the clients can actually trade when it is listed, right? In this case, what happens is it's a very impossible thing to manually, input all this data into the system of HDCB bank, right? Because there are a lot of things which are happening every day on the daily basis. Lot of new stocks are getting added. Some of stocks are getting, removed from the list, etc. Right? Some of the companies goes bankrupt, etc. So what happens? Those has to go away, right? In that case, this bank people, this bank cannot manage all these things, right? So what they do is they basically hire or they basically subscribe the data from some of the data vendors. So data vendors, for example, Bloomberg or Reuters, right? So all these data provider basically will charge certain amount and they say that okay, I will send you all this file on daily basis before the market open. You load it and then you are good. Okay. So this is the example of ETL file extract, guys. ETL file extract. What let's say Reuters agrees to send it, and Reuters has a tie-up, or this HDCB company has actually taken the service from Reuters. So Reuters will actually send this particular file extract, which will contain all the data. Updated data, updated static list, right? And which can be loaded into HDCB bank directly, and then HDCB will have the latest data with them, right? So this kind of ETL process. So here what is happening, guys, right? So in this case, Reuters, let's say as a data provider, Reuters will actually collect all the data from multiple sources everywhere, right? It will actually extract it. It will convert the data into the desired form because HDCB might need a certain format of, right, in the data in certain format which can be loaded into this system, right? So let's say it agrees, let's say some CSV file, let's say stocks.csv file, right? And this particular CSV file will have some format, right? Some format of data that it contains. So the extraction will happen by Reuters, transformation will happen, and finally it will be produced as part of stocks.csv, which is basically the target as a file, right? So hope you understand, right? So how this is working entirely. So this is one of the kind of ETL project where you might have exposure to work, right? This is mostly you will find when you work into data providers like Reuters, Bloomberg, Moody's, Sophie's, etc. All those different data providers, right? So if you have worked or if you might have exposure there, they generally send this type of data to all these subscribers or banks or whoever is basically opting for, right? Second, guys, hope this is making sense, right? So this is the first type. Let's go to the second type. Okay. I know that this is little bit, bigger. The explanation is little longer, guys, but I thought that this will help you to understand how all these things work. And if you can give some example, I want to make sure that you can give this kind of examples when you talk in the interview, right? So that will give a lot of confidence, and your chances of getting selection is more, right? Now second type of ETL project is basically the batch processing, and this is one of the most important, or I would say most widely used. uh, I think majority of the time, this is the batch processing is the purpose of the whole ETL process actually, right? Before, but now since we are using into different places, but this is the batch processing. This is also called data warehousing project, guys. Okay, data warehousing projects, right? All right. Now, in terms of this batch processing, what happens is basically this data warehousing project actually the flow goes like this, right? We have source is basically it can okay, guys, let me copy paste. I think I'll just change it quickly here, right? And the target is always a data warehouse, right? Data warehouse or database, it's same thing, guys, right? So Here you see the source data can be from database, or it can be multiple places or files finally loaded into data warehouse or database. Okay. Why? Because this is the data warehousing projects and we would like to store all the data, all the historical data, okay, so that I can do the analysis, right? This is the prime and most important function of any data warehousing projects, right? And probably I think majority of the projects use this data warehousing projects for the ETL purpose itself is for the using this kind of what do you say, majority of the projects are using data warehousing concepts, right? Now what happens is what is the purpose of this? As I have explained in many of my videos, so I'll not go into much detail into data warehousing project. So you already know that this is the flow here, and all the data, this is the OLTP system, all the data on the daily basis actually getting extracted overnight, and it is loaded into data warehouse. And this data warehouse can contain the data for maybe 10 years, 15 years, how much ever you want, right? And this is the full history. All right. So guys, hope you understand. And if you want to understand more about the data warehousing, I think you can go to my videos of data warehousing and you can understand more about it, right? Now, in terms of skills, guys, when be very careful, right? So here, when you talk about file extracts projects, I think they will not, if you say that, okay, I don't have exposure into data warehousing, they should be okay. But there is another downside also. Let's say somebody is actually recruiting you for any data warehousing projects, which the chances are more actually if you're working into ETL projects, right? Then if you explain this project, probably your chances of selection might be less because here we don't involve the data warehousing at all, right? It's just a simple extract which is actually knowledge of ETL is more than enough, right? We don't go into data warehousing concepts at all here, okay? So you have to see that what is the job profile, what they are looking for, etc. And based on that, you carefully explain the projects that they might be looking for. So as I said, majority of the projects are basically batch processing or the data warehousing projects. So you should um, know this thoroughly, right? Another thing is, let's say somebody is actually not looking for anybody who knows data warehousing, you can actually explain this, right? But if you explain data warehousing projects or batch processing projects, then you need to know data warehousing concepts very, very thoroughly. What is fact tables, what is dimension, what is slowly changing dimensions, type 1, type 2, type 3, what is dimensional modeling, what is ER modeling, all those kind of data warehousing concepts, guys, you should be thorough with it and you should be knowing it on your fingertips, right? So this is very important that you know the data warehousing concept if you are explaining the batch processing projects that you are working on, right? So you will expect this kind of questions there, right? Third type of project is basically the data migration project, guys. Okay, data migration project, basically I will give you a scenario why this happens, right? Data migration. So data migration project, as name suggests, that the data is actually migrated from one to other system, right? And this is one off process. So for example, once you are done with the data migration, probably you will go away with the old system, okay? However, the batch processing, it is the lifelong process, right? Because the source is always there. Source is of the OLTP, and which is keep update. I mean, which will have the continuous source of sending this data, and the target has to maintain the data. This is also a continuous process, right? But data migration project is generally, it is it has certain tenure, right? Because what we do here is basically we uh, extract the data, we actually put everything into target, and then we make sure that the things are working fine, and then we cut off, right? So I'll give you example here, right? So let's say I my flow was, let's say I'll just copy paste here, guys, this again, okay? Probably this one will be okay. So let's say guys, I had source system, right? Now I had target system which was Oracle. Fine. And this is probably okay. This is probably let's say 10 years old. Now what happens is the company decide that okay, let's move because we have lot of data. I'm just giving you some example, guys. Don't take it like Oracle doesn't have the good performance and then other databases have good performance. It's not like that. I'm just giving you some example, right? People actually do migrate from Teradata to Oracle, Oracle to Teradata, Teradata to DB2, Sybase, right? It depends, right? All the databases are having pros and cons, guys, right? I'm just giving you example here. Just let's say you already have the target system as a Oracle, and now your company decide to actually move from Oracle to, for example, Teradata. Okay, Teradata, and they think that the Teradata will solve the purpose, right? So this is the new system that we are actually targeting, and this is the legacy or old system. All right, guys. Now, if you look at it, the source is not changed. Only target is changed here, right? Target is changed to Teradata, which means that the database, the target database is changed now. So in this kind of project, what normally we do is basically we have two things that we have to do here, right? First thing is basically we have to move all this data, which is let's say 10 years old data, right? Which is from the Oracle, and then this data has to be copied over to Teradata, which is the new database, right? So this entire data has to be copied from Oracle. So this is basically target to target copy first of all, and this has to be tested obviously, right? Because when you do some transfer, you can actually test it, right? So it can also be done using some sort of ETL jobs. The ETL jobs will run and populate the data here, or it can also be done by some other tools, right? Dumping the simply pulling in the data and dumping it here, right? This is one of the thing, right? Second, we also have to make sure that this pipeline is built also, right? Because in future, I would like to completely cut off this system, right? I don't want this system. Okay. So this is, for example, one second, guys. Okay. What I want is, yes. Okay. So I don't want this system in my future, right? So this is my future state. So I want to build this system, right? This basically this, so this entire thing, right? So what I will do is there are two type of testing that we have to do, or in fact this is the project which involves two type of testing, and this first thing, guys, this is, let's say, legacy to new. So this Oracle to Teradata transfer of the data, which is the historical data. So this is called the data migration. You actually migrate all this data, existing data, into the new system, and then you also build a new system which is very equivalent to the previous system, or which is very same to the previous system. So in this case, we can do some testing called parallel production testing, right? Parallel production testing basically is I will not stop this particular flow until this system is completely certified and we it is acceptable to the standards and the requirement to the users, is it? So this system will only be decommissioned, or maybe it will be only stopped when this system is ready and fully certified. So the people do many other things here. Basically, they try to run these two systems in parallel. Okay, this is still in the UAT mode. So let's say this can be in UAT, and this is already in production, right? So this is already in production. Now what they do is basically they try to compare on the daily basis. They try to compare the load which is happening, because you see the source is same, ETL is same. I mean, it's loading to a different database in different database. So on daily basis, they will try to do reconcile the data between production and UAT here, and they will do for a certain period of time. For example, let's say 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever period they choose to do as part of their test strategy, right? So they will continue to test it. So this is called parallel production testing, because we are doing the parallel testing in UAT, which is very parallel to the production system, right? So this thing will ensure your current pipeline, which is the continuous pipeline, is actually built properly and it is certified, right? So, two testing. One thing is testing the historical data or the legacy data or the older data here, which is stored, let's say 10 years old data. Entire 10 years data is transferred to Teradata. This is the data migration. And then also ensuring this new pipeline is completely working, right? All right, guys. Now, there can be another kind of data migration project also. This is one of its type. There can be another also. For example, they they just um, you know they just want to do one time data migration, right? So one time data migration, when I say that, let's say they have certain amount of okay. So for example, I'll just tell you here. I mean, I think this could be also one of the data migration, isn't it? So it's one of, isn't it? So let's say I have the Oracle database and then I want to actually transfer entire data into Teradata. What I will do is I will build one ETL pipeline, right? Here, let's say source is Oracle and then I have ETL and then here is target, which is nothing but Teradata, right? So this is basically sorry, this is basically one time data migration, okay? Because as soon as I'm done with the migrating this data, entire data into Teradata, I will not use this particular ETL flow anymore, because I don't want this, because this data is probably the static data, um, which is just a data that is not changing, right? It is only um, I mean, hope you understand, right? This is the data that is basically kept it somewhere, and I just want to keep it again in my new system, right? So I hope that this I was able to explain you guys this three type of projects, right? This three type of projects. And here guys, okay, for here, the people might ask you, how do you do the testing for your data migration? For example, when you migrated from Oracle to Teradata, how did you validated the data? Which means how did you validated whether you had the same data structure? Let's say you have the same number of table and same structure of table in Oracle and Teradata. What is the major difference? What is the, I mean, they can ask you so many questions with regards to performance, why this decision has been made, etc. Right? So you have to be actually prepared a bit about this, the data migration process itself, right? So this is another type of project, but this is the most, as I said, the most widely used is the data batch processing project. Then we have this data migration project and these two, right? So these two are actually lesser used than the second one, okay, batch processing one, okay. So I hope that you are able to understand this three type of projects, and I took a bit more time guys just to explain you so that you get the holistic understanding while you explain while you are at in interview, right? So that's all. I think I just wanted to tell you guys this one, and I think whoever has asked, I think all those people, um, I think you might have got some good idea, and don't hesitate to ask your questions. You send me list of your questions that you might have encountered in your recent interviews, or if you might be learning something, you might have some other questions as well. So guys, it is very important that you continue to send me the questions what you are facing in the interviews on day-to-day basis, right? Wherever you are going, not day-to-day basis, but whenever you are attending the interviews, right? And it's important because once you share it, I will actually probably do some videos and then I can share the answer with rest of you, right? The whole intention of this channel is to learn and grow, guys, right? So that is the reason. I think it's important you continue to share. I'm so grateful that people send it. But I think I need more and more questions to cover such kind of videos. So I'll make sure that I come back to your questions and then you are well prepared or better prepared for your next interviews. Yeah. So that's all for this video and I'll see you soon with the next video. Until then, happy learning. God bless you. Bye.